Howdy, folks. Happy Tuesday. Yeah, I'm sure that some people would enjoy seeing what we talk about before we press live. Ack may be joining us from Jellystone Park in Wyoming. If not, it'll be the three of us, the off the post triumvirate trio here. We have some pre-show stuff. Yes, three. We have some pre-show stuff. I have to start with this, and then we'll get into the home run derby. Somebody I follow on Facebook, a friend, Kevin Shea, who's written a number of books on Bill Barilko and Bobby Orr, a few other things. Derek Sanderson, I believe.
Yeah, he's a real great author.
Real great, and really knowledgeable about hockey. He always puts up something, humorous or interesting about music. He used to work in the music business, and a couple of days ago he posted, "What is your favorite candy bar?" And now this is favorite Canadian candy bar.
Wow.
Now, and I basically said a coffee crisp is the Bobby Orr of candy bars.
Only if you like coffee. If you don't, then you hate it.
It really doesn't taste that much like coffee.
It does. I've had it. It does.
It doesn't, but go ahead. But the thing is, the weird thing is, and people in Canada will know this, a Mars bar in Canada is a Milky Way. That's what it is. It doesn't have, the Mars bar in the US has 2 almonds on it.
Right.
It's the same thing. But I like Milky Way, so I like the Mars bar in Canada. It's pretty much the same thing, but there's other ones like Caramilk and Aero bars. But I think Canadian candy bars are better.
I don't know. I like the Aero bar. I don't think Canadian candy bars are better. I think like English chocolate's better. Like if you want to go Cadbury and stuff, then I think they're better. But I think what we've done in America is we've made Canada our testing ground for test products. That's what we've done. And so that's what's weird about Canada is when you go there, you see stuff that never, ever, ever shows up in the U.S. because they're testing it there.
Yeah, like the Lay's potato chips with the weird flavors, the poutine flavored potato. And I have to say this. I don't know what St. Louis Blue it was, but the Blues Twitter feed posted somebody, Tyler Bozak and his wife made the Stanley Cup into a margarita glass. They put salt on the outside of it. They poured margarita and ice, and they all sipped out of it. That's fine. Somebody ate poutine out of the Stanley Cup. How friggin' gross.
No, I thought the margarita was great. I watched that video. I thought it was great. I think it's great if you eat poutine out of it. You can't do that with the Lombardi trophy. That's the greatest thing about this trophy.
Yeah,
not Russ's please like my sport tweet here. This is legit.
Okay, now to the real pre-show stuff, and
you didn't ask me about what candy bar I like.
I know what candy bar.
Anthony.
I'm out. Bye.
Come on, give it to us, Anthony. Come on.
All right, stand by pretty much every time for me as a Twix bar.
Okay.
Peanut butter or caramel?
Caramel.
Okay. That's boring.
Peanut butter's not bad. The best is Halloween when you get the little ones. Oh my, that's like the best part. It's like the best.
Well, my fallback is a basic Reese's peanut butter cup. I hate when they put the Reese's Pieces in it.
I don't do any of that.
I actually have a new favorite. The new favorite is Reese's now is what's called the outrageous bar.
That's pretty good. I've had one.
That's fantastic with the Reese's Pieces in it with the peanut butter on the inside. That actually is my favorite bar right now with Twix a close second.
And I have to say, it's like they've done something to Butterfinger bars now where, because if you buy a Butterfinger back in the past and it's been sitting on the shelf for about 2 months, you could break a tooth on it. It gets so hard and
just get stuck in your teeth if you didn't break a tooth.
Or that. But now they've done something where, and I'm sure it's probably laced with chemicals, but they've done something to keep the inside of the Butterfinger bar sort of loose and chewy. So it's not as bad, but I love a Butterfinger. I just don't feel like breaking my you
got a history of breaking teeth on.
Please on a raisinette if you can believe it. Shut up. Okay, home run derby. Russ has been taking some abuse on social media for Pete Alonso of the Mets winning the home run derby. And I said yesterday, and this is no revelation to Russ.
Italian, by the way, Russ.
Is what?
Is Pete Italian?
I think he is, but I'm not 100%.
Yes, that represents the only thing that the Mets will win all year. Although I think he'll win the NL Rookie of the Year. But this is my point of view, and everybody was agog last night over Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s display, hitting 29 home runs in the first round or second round, then hitting 29 and then winning a triple home run off with, who was it, Jock Peterson?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Here's an unpopular opinion. He did not belong in the home run contest. He had 8 home runs this year. If he had 30, fine. And I know a number of people dropped out of it, or a number of people like Cody Bellinger didn't want to be in it because it would affect.
Yeah, and Yelich had a bad back. He dropped.
Yelich had a bad back. That's but there were plenty of other guys who are hitting in the 20s or in the high teens that deserve to be in there. Now, don't get me wrong, Guerrero was phenomenal, but the thing is, he said I don't consider it any kind of great performance because he's hitting it off a batting practice guy.
All right, so a few things on this. Few things. First thing is, when I broke out the odds last week, I picked Alonso and Peterson as the finalists, so I was close with Alonso being the winner. So if you bet Alonso and you won money because of me, you're welcome. Second thing, I predicted Alonso would help people care about this, and actually Alonso, Peterson, and Guerrero did, because nobody cared about the home run derby before yesterday. Nobody. But then when they saw the way it was working out, they liked it. What you said about Guerrero is on the fence. It may be true, but he was only up for partial season. But the idea is that's where his seeding was. And CBS tried to have this bogus argument that he was robbed. Well, he was not robbed. He was a lower seed because he didn't hit that many homers. Right. Yelich was the top seed, and actually I think he had one more homer than Alonso, but he was out. So then when they put Chapman in there, he got the 1 seed. Alonso was the 2 seed. That's a benefit. Now, all these guys had professional batting practice pitchers. Alonso had his cousin.
Yeah. And
he couldn't throw strikes half the time.
He almost cost him in a head-to-head against Carlos Santana. Yeah. The guy couldn't get it over the strike zone. He was doing his best imitation of, I don't know, Steven Matz.
I don't know if people noticed, but if they had a guy throwing him down the middle, he would hit 20 more in dead center field.
Right.
It just would have happened. So it's a fun contest. But people hate Met fans to the point now where they feel like they have to just shit on them, for a lack of a better term, to get through their day.
Anthony, go ahead. Go ahead with the Mets drama here.
It's the one sunshine of light that Russ has gotten in this godforsaken season.
Right.
I'm not going to piss in his Cheerios or anything like that. This is what he has, so I'm going to let him have it. Our friend Adam Woden, of course, is not as happy about this. He feels that
he's a goddamn Grinch.
Exactly. I was this tempted to basically say, hey Russ, look, here's the rain. Here's the sunshine.
I didn't see what Adam said. What did he say?
Oh, just find his tweet. You'll know. It's like an embarrassment. It's a joke that Mets fans care this much about. Blah 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 blah. Please.
Is he a Yankees fan?
No. He's absolutely a Mets fan. He's a devout Mets fan, and I've been having arguments with him over the Nets and Sixers for for 2 weeks now. But
also the guy, Anthony. Like, if this were Todd Frazier and he won, Met fans would not be going this crazy.
He's an ass.
It's the Alonso way.
Alonso's at least likable.
He's a likable guy. People forget his story. Last September, he didn't even get a call-up, and he led the minor leagues in homers. So he went on Twitter, and he's like, I'm really disappointed the Mets didn't call me up. And he was right to do that. Like, it's his whole story. It has nothing to do with it just being a Mets player, too. That's the other misunderstood thing.
Mike's just going to run around here. He's sitting in the background just going 27-2.
Yeah, and he can do that, and that's fine, but they don't win every year, so whatever.
Well, they don't win it every year, but at least they've won once in this century.
I'll tell you what this will do, Mike. You know what this home run derby will do? It'll draw the cowards out of the shadows like Aaron Judge, so he'll have to go head-to-head with Alonso next year.
I mean, I'm sorry. I don't want, like, as a
wait, you don't want your guy to hurt himself? Is that where you're gonna go?
Well, I'm sorry. He had a strained lat, and that it kept him out for 2 months. So I really don't want him getting hurt again.
And then Sanchez can go in his place, Mike.
Okay, fine. And he can hit 190 and hit 50 home runs. So whatever. But all right, let's start the show.
Yes.
You can tell that I don't have Gary Sanchez and Spread-O-Matic because I don't care what he does. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Tuesday, July 9th, 2019.
I'm Anthony Mangione from Center Ice Magazine.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Lagello, and this is the HockeyBuzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. We're going to talk about some, restricted and unrestricted free agents and whatever else we want to talk about in the next 45 minutes to an hour. Start with this because we're not going to go into the whole offer sheet debate because I think it's pretty much been solved. Although people are pretty much been, I think it's
Russ has had enough. He's ready to go already.
It was a story that everybody thought there was going to be tons of offer sheets, and then people, the Aho offer sheet said, okay, well, now we got at least one. I seriously doubt there's going to be another. Maybe I'm in the minority. Some people think that there's an opening for it. But I know that the popular expression was, well, if we don't get offer sheets from the big guys, Rantanen, Aho, Marner, Braden Point, we will get it for the secondary guys like Kasperi Kapanen, and the name I heard a lot was Kevin Labanc.
Yep.
and you know what? Kasperi Kapanen was signed before July 1st. To a very economical bridge deal by the Leafs. And yesterday, Kevin Labanc signs a 1-year deal for $1 million.
I have just...
I mean, if that doesn't tell you that the offer sheet is a load of crap that nobody really wants to use other than as a threat, because he could have leveraged an offer sheet to get a better deal.
Of course.
Yeah.
But no one's going to do that to Doug Wilson. That's the point here. Doug Wilson is a star GM. Nobody is going to want to draw the ire at him. You're not going to see Lou Lamoriello pull an offer sheet on anybody, and no one's going to pull one on Lou. This is like a gunfight at the OK Corral, and there are some guys you don't want to face, and that's why they did it to Tom Dundon. We get it. Like, that's, I get it. It doesn't happen a lot. Labanc was probably told by Wilson, hey, hang in until after January. I'll get you after that. It's a cap thing. And he said, yeah, okay, because I like it here and I trust you. That's what it boils down to.
Yeah. And now Labanc had 56 points last year, 17 goals, 39 assists, 9 points in the playoffs, had a really good year, had 40 points the year before. Based on those 2 years, if he would have gone the RFA route and sort of tried to procure an offer sheet, he probably would have gotten in maybe the $4.5 million range. Not something that is going to be 4 first-round picks, but been a first.
If I'm basing him versus, let's say, like a Travis Konechny, yeah, it'd be up north of probably what Konechny is likely to get here.
Mm-hmm.
And again, at $1 million. And it's what, 750,000. I think 750,000 was salary and 250 was signing bonus.
Yeah, but look at this situation.
He could, by the way, he could send that 250 back to Staten Island. It goes a long way in Staten Island. Anyhow,
but look at it this way. He's betting on himself, so to speak. He puts up another year like this. He allows the Sharks the room to re-sign Thornton, to re-sign Marleau, and those guys probably are 1 or 2 years at the most. Probably Marleau is 1 more year and then he retires. Thornton maybe a year.
My gut is if they get it all the way or at least to the final this year, this is gonna be
right. But he's hanging around on the odd chance that they get past the conference final and get to another Stanley Cup. But it allows them to re-sign those guys and that team to have a better chance. But once they retire, once they move on from them, then a guy like Labanc is going to be the one who's the beneficiary of that open cap space. So, and he gets to play in Northern California. That's not the worst thing in the world. So, I completely understand from his point of view.
Yeah, I also think it's a matter of this team had faith in him. Again, if we go back to the Labanc story where he led the OHL in scoring with 127 points, he hadn't been on a USA team since 2013, and he hasn't been since. He's never been invited since. He hasn't been on any World Championship team. He wasn't on the under-20 team. He put up all these points, and they ignored him, right? And so if you don't think that gave him loyalty to the Sharks, of course it did.
Yeah. Now let's look at we're now 8 days off of July 1st. There was a big rush, a couple signings afterward, but now we're sort of settling into, there's a few free agents out there unrestricted that I'm a little surprised there haven't been signed. But let's just touch on a couple of those. I mean, we'll just, because we mentioned Thornton and Marleau. Marleau got bought out by Carolina after being traded by Toronto. Thornton is a UFA, but I don't think anybody doesn't expect both of them to re-sign in San Jose. I'm just a little surprised, Russ, that it hasn't happened yet. But maybe they were waiting to get LeBanc locked up before they decided they were going to sign these guys.
I think that's what it was. I think they were worried about allotting that cap space, and now that it's happened, those other guys will fall in line now. I think that's the way you have to do it now, and players that are hanging, waiting for their deals, understand that. Yeah, I mean, this is just smart cap management. I mean, again, if the Sharks win the Stanley Cup this year, we're all going to look back at this and say this was a brilliant move by Doug Wilson.
Now, the two most prominent unrestricteds that are not signed yet, one forward, one defense, is Ryan Dzingel and Jake Gardiner. I haven't heard anything in terms of where Dzingel's go. The only thing I heard was some interest from Chicago. But other than that, I really haven't heard a lot, which would lead me to believe that maybe that Columbus is in on it. I know that isn't he from Ohio, Russ?
Yes.
Yeah, and they have a boatload of cap space, so it might make sense for him to go back there either on a short-term or a long-term deal if they want him back. I mean, it's a question of whether they just considered him a rental or not.
It's got to be the term. It has to be, because he's a pretty good player. I know in the chat room they're like, oh, he's not any good. Listen, he's a 27-year-old guy who has a center who has proven he could play in the league. Right. At this point, would you rather have him or Derek Brassard? I mean, he had 26 goals last year. You can't take that away from him. Right.
And we're not talking about Dzingel being a top two center, a first line. Anthony, I think he's a third line center. And if you have a third line center who scored 20 goals, I mean, what I think Russ is right. I think he's probably shooting for 3 or 4 years on a term, and he's probably getting offered what Marcus Johansson got from the Sabres, which is 2 years.
Yeah, I'm thinking that's in all likelihood that's probably 2 years is probably what he's being offered. He's trying to hold out long enough to see if anybody gets desperate enough and decides to say, you know what, we'll bring him on board. The question is, how long is he going to be waiting on this? If he's lockstep on a 3-year deal, he could very well be waiting right up until the start of training camp if he's not careful.
Yeah, let's be realistic. Like Fash out in the chat room's like, well, I would take Kerfoot over him. No, you wouldn't. Listen, Dzingel's had
Kerfoot over who?
Dzingel.
I think they're different players, but I think that's about even.
They are different players, but Dzingel's put up much more goals than Kerfoot.
Yeah, no, I mean Kerfoot's put 15 and 17 in his first.
Yeah, Dzingel had 3 consecutive 20+ goal seasons and a 56-point season last year. Like, you can't just arbitrarily say, well, and Kerfoot's cheaper too. He will definitely be cheaper than what Dzingel's asking. There's no question.
Right. And you have to realize that Kerfoot is slotting into it was the perfect trade for the Leafs in the sense that the Kerfoot slots in as a third line center at $3.5 million. I mean, Kadri was a bargain at 4.5 for being a 30-goal scorer. But after having Matthews and Tavares, you really didn't need a 30-goal scorer as a third line guy. Right. And that's why the trade made sense. And that's why Kerfoot fitting in and getting signed, slotting in at $3.5 million along with Kapanen and Janssen, that makes sense for Toronto. We're going to see, what's going to happen over the summer in terms of Marner and what they're going to have to do. Somebody put a question to me on Twitter because I have a statement I made about Jake Gardiner. They says, who would you rather have, Marner or Tyson Barrie and Jake Gardiner? And I said, I'd rather have Marner and Tyson Barrie, not sign Gardiner and trade Nylander. And I think
let's chat about Tyson Barrie for a minute.
Okay.
The more we hear scuttlebutt, the more he seems like a 1-year rental, because if he's truly looking to make $8 million a year, the Leafs will never pay him that.
Right. And if he scores, and remember, the last 2 years, I think he scored 57 and 59 points. If he scores in the 60s, there's no way they can re-sign him. So I mean, essentially what they did was they got a cheaper, younger center for Kadri and Kerfoot,
Right.
and they got probably got a 1-year rental in Barry for Callie Rosen. And that's, for their aim right now. Because remember, the Leafs have 3 unrestricted free agent defensemen, Ceci, Muzzin, Barry, a restricted free agent in Travis Dermott. They'll sign Dermott to an extension, and they probably will sign one of those 3. And if it's the one of the unrestricted 3, I think it'll be Muzzin. I don't think it'll be Barry. I mean, they'd love to sign Barry, but unless they clear cap space some way, I don't know how they can sign 2 of them, Anthony.
Yeah, I would find it pretty tough to be able to slot dollars for both of those players.
And that's why this fallacy about Jake Gardiner. I know there have been reports out there that Gardiner hasn't signed, and he'd like to go back to Toronto, and Toronto would like to bring him back, but it would have to be on a discount. Okay, unless he's taking $2 million on a 1-year deal, the Leafs simply can't afford him, and he's not going to do that. I mean, I'm a little surprised that it's July 9th, Anthony, and Gardiner is not signed. I think the whole thing here again is term and where he's going to get the most.
Yeah, I think it's a case. I completely agree there, Mike. I think it's more of a case of what he wants in terms of years. He's in the 5 to 6 year range. He's probably going to have some difficulty, and that's where he's hitting it. I think you get to the 3 to 4 year range on Gardner. I think you can start really talking turkey, but he's probably in the belief that he can get more than that.
Yeah, and there's been talk about Winnipeg, Montreal, Buffalo. I joked on Twitter, and of course, one thing you can't do on Twitter is joke.
Or you can't, Mike.
Well, yeah, because everyone takes everything I say seriously. I said, well, it would be nice that the Leafs could benefit from his defensive gaffes after 7 or 8 years of being the victim of them. If he signed with Buffalo or Montreal. Of course, everybody's like in love with Jake Gardiner post his career with Toronto because they don't remember the -5 against the Bruins in Game 7 or how he played in last year's Game 7. So, whatever.
I want to say this, though. I think the only reason term is an issue with Jake Gardiner is because of his back.
Yeah.
Because he is going to be the kind of player where load management, which is the catchy new phrase, will be an issue. And he won't play every game of the season. And there's going to be a protocol for him. And he is going to have like the Mike Richards treatment as far as when he's training and not training and on off days, and all that's going to come into play. So teams don't want to give a guy a 7-year deal with that in play. They don't.
All right, we're going to play our little game in a little bit, but Russ, I wanted to talk about the article that you wrote regarding players that you think that didn't play in the NHL last year, that either the American Hockey League or in Europe, that will jump in and make the NHL this year. And I think there are a couple interesting names there. So go ahead and talk about that.
Yeah, I only had one first rounder, and that's Logan Stanley, but I put him in that list because I saw a change in him the last 2 years. People in Winnipeg, especially Winnipeg radio, very harsh on this kid.
Yeah.
And they just were like, because of where he was drafted, taken in the draft, like 18th overall, well, we don't like him. We don't like what we see, blah, blah, blah. Tyler Myers is now gone, and I'm not saying he is a replacement for Tyler Myers, but he'll take up the same amount of space on the ice. And when he keeps it simple, Stanley's a good player, like he is. And he's changed his game. And this is a guy with a long stick and a little bit of an edge to him. Mm-hmm. And I think you could put him on the third pairing and you can get him in there. I don't see how he doesn't make the Winnipeg team. I'll be surprised if he doesn't make it.
Well, I mean, there's going to be a big switch over with Winnipeg on the blue line. And you're going to see Sammy Niku. You're going to see Logan Stanley. You're going to see Tucker Pullman. I mean, they can't afford. They'll be able to re-sign Morrissey on a long-term extension, but. Mm-hmm. They've already, Trouba's gone, Myers is gone. They have to move on to a young group.
Yeah, and they have other considerations as well, salary-wise, certainly, that to figure out line A and everything else. But blue line-wise, in front of their goaltending, they have to kind of rethink things. And again, there are things about Stanley I definitely do like. I think he's still work in progress, and some might having a guy taking a guy in the first round who may be a third pairing defenseman may not necessarily be the greatest of decisions to make there in terms of where he was taken for. Where it's kind of like in the Sam Morin mold a little bit, except Morin was taken 12th, at least for Philadelphia. If I'm going to draw a Flyers comparison here, so.
Yeah.
But I think he has the capability of being an NHL defenseman. From what I've seen of him so far, the answer is yes. I do think so. It's just, you have to shift your mindset if you're a Winnipeg Jets fan in terms of what he's going to be. And as long as he provides you with rock solid defense, and at the end of the day, size can still be an intimidating factor. You see a guy that big back there, you may get, and he looks like he'll play a little bit. You end up giving him a little bit more of a wide berth.
Yeah, and he's got
a defenseman. I get it, but teams need those guys.
And he's got a nasty edge too.
He does.
And that now I don't know if Russ, was I wrong that when he was drafted, people were questioning whether he did, and then he started playing with a more nastier edge after he was drafted?
I think that's true, but I'm not 100% anymore. But I think that there is some truth to that.
What about a couple more names on that list?
So everybody looks at the Devils and say, well, they should get another forward. They're going to come up short on scoring. Jesper Boqvist, Adam's brother, his older brother, he's coming over. And I'll tell you, he's been really good for Brenus. He's a really good skater. He's versatile, so he'll probably play on the wing. I don't think they'll use him as a center if they use him. And the same way Jesper Bratt sort of just worked into the lineup, I think you can work Boqvist in there, and he could do a lot of different things. Very highly skilled guy. And again, if you're the Devils, you need a guy like that to be able to slot in.
And people forget. I mean, that's the thing, is that we all remember that Nico Hischier getting drafted, but everybody was also doing backflips when they had Boqvist available to them in the top end of the second round. So you have to. We were talking about a second round pick player here with high skill set. You have to keep that. Again, there's always a transition in mind, obviously, in his first year coming over to North America, but we all remember how excited people were, especially Devils fans were like, wow, we got Bonanza, we got the top pick, we got Hischier, and we got Boqvist in the same draft. Boqvist was supposed to be a first-round pick. So I look at it as if he can transition over as a winger here at in the NHL level, I think they've got a good situation on their hands.
Yeah, and the Devils need to put talent on the wing. I mean, because they've been weak up the middle for a long time, and now potentially this year you're going to have Hughes, Hischier, Zajac as a third line. I don't know who their fourth line center is going to be, and hopefully Taylor Hall stays healthy.
Yep.
They need those centers to play with talent to be able to accentuate their offensive ability. So if that happens, if they get a good year out of Bratt, and I'm drawing the blank who the former Anaheim Duck, who was their really effective winger that scored for them.
Palmieri?
Yes, Palmieri.
Yeah, they need more than Hall and Palmieri to be able to score offensively on the wings. If they can get that, Wayne Simmons is going to help in that respect. So Wayne Simmons is probably going to play a top 6 role. Then, if they get all that, then they have, and they get goaltending out of Blackwood, then they have a pretty decent chance of being competitive in the Metro. So
better than last year, that's for sure.
Yeah, one more name, and then I got one, and then we can go to here.
I'll give you 2 more quick ones. Emil Benstrom, who won the SHL Rookie of the Year, is going to come over for Columbus this year. Mm-hmm. And I think he'll be a 20-goal scorer plus right away. Mm-hmm. I think you will see him on the power play. I think you will see like a Pettersson kind of shot out of him, which all of a sudden you'll be like, wow, on the power play and a little open ice, which he'll find. Mm-hmm. He could do a lot of things. And he was a top 3 player in the World Juniors. Like, this is a guy who Jarmo Kekalainen's very high on, and he should be. And I think when you see him at the NHL level, he's going to surprise people. And I think so. And he was taken 117th overall.
Right.
Last one's Alexei Heponiemi. Like, this is a guy that maybe he comes in at 160 soaking wet. This kid can fly, man. He's at speed, and I think they're going to have a hard time sending him back.
Couple that I mean, Victor Olofsson for the Sabres played, I think, 6 or 7 games at the end of the year. Really didn't get more than just a little bit of a look-see. But it sounds like the Sabres are going to give him a legitimate chance to be probably on the right side in their top 9 with all the recent signings they had. I mean, their right side is a lot weaker than their left, and it also depends on whether they put Marcus Johansson up the middle or they put him on the wing. But Olofsson could play as high as the top line with Eichel and Skinner. Although he probably will play a little lower down. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, I think he's going to get a big opportunity. And Ilya Mikheyev for the Leafs, the KHL guy that they signed, There's been talk that he might even get placed, and he played right wing in the KHL, but he's a left-hand shot. There's talk about him possibly playing on the number 1 line with Nylander and Matthews. And if that happens, if he's got any scoring ability, he'll probably pot 20 to 25. So,
and I haven't seen much of him. I will tell you this though, and
size. I know that he's got size.
Yeah, this is what I wrote in the article. This is why I cover preseason. This is why I watch preseason, because it's guys like this that these games are very important to, and a lot of times gets them jobs.
All right, let's play our little game, and we're going to play this throughout the summer because as signings happen, right now, most of the signings are, with the exception of the 2 guys we mentioned, Dzingel and Gardner, a lot of these are going to be 1-year signings, 2 at the most. But we're getting to the point now, even though it's only a week into free agency, that you have to ask the question, are these guys even going to get a 1-year contract, or are they going to wait until August to get a training camp invite, a PTO, or will they, when the music stops in musical chairs, not get anything, not get even a sniff? So it's our normal game of 1-year deal, PTO, or nada. And I'll read off about
version of was it date, marry, or kill?
Yeah. F, marry, kill.
Yeah.
That was the
I was doing the clean version.
Yes, well, I didn't say the word. Okay. All right. We'll start with, I'm using our friends at Cap Friendly. I'm using their list here, and their list is based on what the player was paid last year. So, but some of these players bought out, and I don't know how great their prospects are of getting a deal. Let's start with Dion Phaneuf, former captain of the Maple Leafs, Calgary, Toronto, Ottawa, and LA. Now buyout. Does Dion Phaneuf, Russ, find a 1-year deal? Does he get a PTO, or does he find no one interested?
PTO. I think they're going to worry about his skating and just where his head is at. And I don't think anybody's just going to throw him a 1-year deal and throw him into the locker room mix just because he used to play well.
Anthony?
I'll concur with Ross. I would say PTO.
The only way he gets a 1-year deal is he takes league minimum. And I was saying to Russ before the show, it's like most of these defensemen that we're going to talk about, if they get a 1-year deal, the price on defensemen is more than the price on forwards. Like Jason Spezza signed a $700,000 minimum contract. Not many defensemen are going to sign a minimum deal unless they have absolutely no interest. They're probably going to get over $1 million because defense is a rarer commodity. I think Phaneuf will find a 1-year deal. But I think it's going to be it'll probably be below $1 million. And, I can't completely rule out the possibility of him coming back to Toronto because Babcock did like him. I don't know whether the fans will like it. I know that the fans will the fans who love Jake Gardner will hate the idea of Dion Phaneuf coming back as on top of Cody Ceci. But I think, and they partnered together in Ottawa. So that's a possibility, but
is it still the same locker room attendant in Toronto, Mike?
I have no idea.
Okay, because if it is, he's not going to be happy.
Okay. Jason Pominville, former captain of the Buffalo Sabres, played for Minnesota, came back to Buffalo, had a pretty decent year last year. There's been talk of him possibly coming back at a lower salary with the Sabres, but it has not happened as of yet. Anthony, first you, 1-year deal, PTO, or nada?
1-year deal for Pominville.
Okay. Russ?
Either the Sabres or the Wild.
Yeah, the Sabres have the cap space, so if they want to sign him, they'll sign him. I think that they
probably want to see him at this point. He's getting at that point where
and it's a new coach. It's a
new coach, and Freddie Krueger's got to see if he likes him. Like, there's a lot of factors.
Freddie Krueger.
Ralph Krueger, sorry.
Is it Freddie Krueger?
His nickname is Freddie?
Yeah.
Wow. God, no, sorry. Sorry. Okay, here's one right up your route, Anthony. Andrew McDonald, former Philadelphia Flyer, bought out. 32 years old, was making over $5 million. Was making $5 million. Was bought out with a year left in his contract. 1-year deal, PTO, or nada?
See, now if it was coming off of 2 seasons ago, I would have been slam dunk on a 1-year deal because he was coming off a pretty solid season. Now, I'm kind of between the two because, again, defenseman, if there's an injury, all of a sudden people are looking for that, a safe number 6 defenseman potentially.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go with 1-year deal for Andrew McDonald. I think he's going to get it'll be for them probably close to the minimum. It'll be right around the minimum, but I do think he will get a 1-year deal from someone.
Russ?
PTO.
Okay, so nobody's a believer that much that they'll give him.
I don't think he has that many believers. I think we've all seen that you can plug him into certain situations, and for a short time he looks okay. I don't know if they want to dole out a 1-year contract just based on that. That's the issue.
Okay, Nicholas Kronwall, 38 years old. A couple years ago, I thought it was coming to the end of it with a really bad knee. Did not have a bad year last year. A lot of talk that he did not want to be traded at the deadline because he wanted to come back. Now things have changed. I think if Ken Holland was in Detroit, he would have already been re-signed. But now Steve Yzerman is the GM, and I don't know whether there is a future for him in Detroit. But the question is whether there would be a future for him someplace else. Russ, you first. 1-year contract, PTO, or nada?
I mean, Yzerman clearly steered clear of him, and he is a warrior, but like Kevin Allen's pointed out, he is playing on one leg. If you watch him, it literally is the case. Nobody will want him.
So you think nada? Okay.
He's nada. Yeah, nada.
Anthony?
Yeah, I think he goes back to Sweden. I agree. I think he'll probably play. He'll wrap things up in Sweden.
Yeah, there's always been that and there was talk at the deadline of Toronto being interested. I don't know what the motivation there for Kronwall. I think he'd be motivated to finish out his career with Detroit. I don't know how motivated he would be to go play for Babcock again, based on stuff that we've heard about Babcock in Detroit. And some of the treatment of players there. So I'll agree. I think if he does, he'll do what Pavel Datsyuk did. He'll go back home and finish out his career in the SHL.
Hey, look, let's talk about for the 1 second. Pavel Datsyuk tried to come back to Detroit, and Yzerman was like, "No, don't want to go back there."
Yeah, I mean, it's delaying the inevitable. Right. Yzerman has really grasped what I'm a little surprised that he signed Filppula, but he had experience with
a good year.
Yeah, he had a good year, and he had experience with Filppula and his work.
That's the extent of what he's going to do in terms of nods to the past, I think.
Right, I think he
has some uses. He has some level of utility.
Right, and he's a veteran support guy. He's a good team guy,
and a penalty killer. You still need penalty killers too.
Right. So, and they need veteran bodies. So, okay, a couple more, and I know Anthony, you got to go in a few minutes. So, Scott Darling, 30-year-old, bought out by the Carolina Hurricanes after 2 horrific years. Actually, he was bought out by Florida in a sort of, they traded a crap for crap deal where they traded Reimer to Carolina. So Scott Darling, 30 years old, was a good backup with the Blackhawks when he got a start for a chance for the starting goaltender job in Carolina. Failed miserably. 1-year deal, PTO, or nada? Anthony?
AHL.
An AHL deal? Wow,
he doesn't
option here. Okay, but
I don't think he finds a job in the NHL, and he ends up he becomes Michael Layton.
Wow. Okay, Russ, what do you think?
AHL or KHL?
Wow. I mean, I'm a little taken aback. I thought. Now, honestly,
part of it. He's not that bad. He's only proven himself to be good under Chicago's system.
And the other thing was
he just does not. That's the issue there.
Yeah, Anthony's right, and he wasn't exactly a happy camper with Charlotte either.
No. I mean, when Charlotte played the Marlies in the Eastern Conference Final, Scott Darling was nowhere to be found. He was not the backup or the starter. So they basically told him, "Stay away. We're buying you out."
Right.
And I know that there was some rumor about possibly him going back to Chicago, but with the signing of Leonard,
no, that would have been it. Once Leonard signed with Chicago, that was it.
It. And they have Delia as a backup in case Crawford gets hurt. So yeah, I think maybe he goes to Europe. So nada would be the answer. One more before you have to leave, Anthony. Ryan Spooner, traded from the Rangers to Edmonton to Vancouver, bought out by the Canucks. 27 years old, only had 9 points last year in 52 games. Does Spooner find a 1-year contract, a PTO, or nada?
Anthony? Yeah, PTO all over him. To me, he really does. He's got to prove himself. He's the definition of he's got to prove it. He's a
PTO. Russ?
Classic PTO.
Yeah, I think it's going to be, show me. It's going to be, we've seen what you've done in the past, but you haven't shown that to us lately. So you're going to have to show me what you're doing. Otherwise, you don't. I mean, for a team like, and I'm not saying that they're going to, for a team like New Jersey who needs veteran depth, they did it with like a guy like Drew Stafford. I could see, them or an Arizona or somebody like that bringing in that guy and saying, "We'll take a look at you at training camp and see what you do." So, okay, we'll take some questions in the chat. Anthony, if you have to go.
Here you go, guys. Talk to you.
Yeah.
Have a good one.
Yeah, we'll take some questions in the chat if people want to. If people want to rip on me for my Jake Gardner stance, please be my guest. But go ahead, Russ, with some questions.
Okay. Let's see what we've got.
Yeah, we'll do the that game probably later on this week. We'll include names like Dan Girardi, Thomas Vanek, Michael Del Zotto. While you're looking for questions here, one interesting thing, I saw a report from Dennis Bernstein from the fourth period regarding Ben Hutton, who did not get a qualifying offer from the Canucks, and apparently he's drawn interest from like 4 or 5 teams, including the LA Kings. And
I know he'll be cheap now.
Right, and the league, and that's the whole thing. It's like, I'm sure that there's interest, but there's interest up to a certain amount.
Yeah,
that's the thing. He was making $2.8 million. Yeah. I think he's probably a one and a quarter amount year defenseman, and if he asks any more than that, there'll be a lot.
At 1.2, everybody's in on him. It's all about money. Okay. Right. Kyle asks, Russ, do you think Morgan Frost could be a third line right wing this year, or still think he'll end up playing in the AHL to start the season? I mean, he'll be given every chance. I think there is a chance he can make it. I don't think it's a lock by any stretch. And so, no, I think there's a chance. I think he is a guy that will get all of training camp, and he might even get some games into the season to see. All right.
I'll say this. I know that Frost can play the wing. He played wing in the World Junior for Team Canada. I think it would be a little bit of a mistake to move him on. If he plays in the AHL, if he plays for Lehigh, I would hope that they would play him at center, because you can always move him to the wing.
Yeah,
need to, but I think it would probably benefit him to play up the middle at the AHL level and learn to see if he can play at the NHL level at that position. So
yeah. All right. Biz Angel asks, where do I see Gusev landing, and who is a current NHL comp for those who hadn't seen his play? I see him landing with Vegas, actually, because I think without the market being set on him, teams are worried that once they get him, they can't afford him. And so I think Vegas
I don't know if Vegas can afford him.
Well, I think they'll have to do it to turn him back into an asset. Who would I say is close to him? I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's a guy who's not in the NHL that's close to him.
I mean, he's not Panarin. Is he Radulov?
No, I mean he's smaller, right? So he has some Panarin-like tendencies.
How about Davidoff for Florida?
Yeah, he's better defensively. I think he's a combination of a few different guys, but there are some of the way he can carry the puck is Panarin-like, but he's not going to be Panarin. But could he be a 45, 50-point guy? I think he can. Yeah,
but see, the thing is that the figure that's been announced has been $4 million.
Right, and a lot of teams can't afford that now. Vegas maybe can't either. But you can't let this guy just walk away, because if you do that, then everybody will want him. So you have to pay the price.
I mean, is he an RFA right now? I thought he was a U. Well, I think
he's an RFA.
Yeah, they have his rights for 1 year, and then I think he turns UFA.
Yeah, but he's a guy that's just too valuable to let walk. So I think they'll have to negotiate with him. And then if they end up trading him, teams will deal with that trade because there's cost certainty, right?
Okay.
Andrew asks, do I think it's foolish to overpay a star now to stabilize the market later? Example, McDavid, $14 million. Look, every GM knows there are guys that they are overpaying for, but they need the player. That's why when the cap goes up, they don't worry about it as much because they'll make it up on other ways. They'll make it up with younger players to balance it out.
Right.
But like every team would take Connor McDavid at that salary. Every team.
Yeah, and that's why, I mean, again, the ongoing debate about Marner. If he gets an offer sheet, or if the Leafs end up paying, say, $11 million on a 6 or 7 year deal, I think they'll definitely do it, because what they'll have to do is, like you said, there'll be more of an influx of players from the Marlies on entry level contracts, and they probably, if they have 3 players making over $10 million, then the middle class is always what suffers, and a guy making $6.9 million like William Nylander probably gets traded because they simply can't afford him.
Yeah, Toronto Greenhouse asks, would any team be willing to take on Louis Eriksson or Brandon Sutter from the Canucks if they throw in Goldobin? For one, I don't think they would throw in Goldobin, and 2, I don't think anybody wants the players. I think their salaries are way past what their benefit is.
I don't know.
They're kind of stuck with them.
I don't know if Goldobin is enough of a sweetener to move those contracts. I mean, I think it would have to be somebody like O'Leary.
Yeah,
or like Cole Lind, or if somebody's looking for a goaltender, Thatcher Demko. I mean, yeah, I mean, it's tough. I mean, these teams are in a tough. I mean, just look at this. The Leafs, for 1 year of Patrick Marleau at $6.25, had to trade a first-round pick.
I know, but there's no way they would move Demko because he is their goalie. I mean, they do have DiPietro too, I believe, but.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. That one might be available.
But I don't think they want to move either, because I think there is a formula in this league right now where if you could draft goalies and they're ready to take over at some point, look at the amount of money you could save by playing younger goalies if they're ready for it, right? That's a huge savings.
Right.
So that's, I think they're going to want to go that route because they overspend in other areas. Lord asks me, will the Mets coach be fired? I'm sure he's talking about Mickey Callaway. No. He's going to play out the season, and then he'll be fired because they're just cheap, and they're not going to replace him.
Well, here's the question from Mike in Buffalo in the chat. Will Joe Girardi be the next manager of the New York Mets?
I think there's a chance, but I think the issue is, would he get along with Jeff Wilpon? Like, I don't know how that relationship would go.
Well, Joe Girardi doesn't get along with anybody.
Right. So he might not get selected as a result of that.
Okay. That's it? Okay.
Shut it down.
Okay. Perla says goodbye.
She's had it with everybody.
Yeah, there you go. She's pissed off about the home run derby.
Yes.
Come here. Okay, for Anthony Mangione, for Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thanks for watching. We'll be back tomorrow. And remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.